Welcome to the Spirit of Doom.
Welcome, dear listeners, and gratitude for tuning into another edition of Spirit of Do, a bi weekly show exclusive to Radio Yesterday, airing Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. South African Standard Time, with me, David John Wayne Bailey, your host and guide, as we embark upon a journey to bridge the gap between thought and action. Brent grew up in high places that was bordering Stratford Green, one of the more raucous areas in the vicinity. But eventually his life would lead him to actually have business in Stratford Green as well. He grew up the youngest of three brothers, with a mother and a father that did their best to raise them well, but because of the influences of the negative elements and the warring aspects of the gangs in the various areas, they eventually got drawn into that. As boys, we grow up with a sense of machismo. We want to prove ourselves physically, especially to our peers, to other boys, as we find our way in life. That physicality would eventually ramp up because something that Brent had to his advantage out of all his brothers, he inherited his father's height. So he was much taller than the average person, which gave him a superiority complex as well. So it started in primary school because he was taller than most boys in his class or most people at his school, as tall as some teachers even. He would go around bullying the smaller ones, boys and girls. It made no matter to him. He was the tallest, might made right, and whatever he did or said, that was the law. So eventually, as years passed on, he got indoctrinated into a gang, and they stomped the grounds of Stratford Green, high places, and the surrounds. Fist fights would turn into knife fights, which led to a crucial day in his life. The boss of one of the gangs called him up and gave him an order. He also asked Brent to hold out his hand while he put something cold, shiny, and hard in it. Brent looked down at the six-shooter revolver, and the order from the boss was, there is someone that opposes the gang, and if this person reports what they witnessed to the police, that the gang would fall apart because that would mean the boss would have to do some serious time. Brent's instruction was to take care of this person. This was late in the afternoon, and Brent was to take care of this as soon as it got dark. Fortunately or unfortunately for him, the person lived quite close to his mother's house. Both his brothers had already moved out, and he was the only one still living with his parents. He made the necessary excuses after supper, as was his way to leave the house. His parents also understood this before his father shouted at him again, but to no avail. He left. The weapon tucked away in his left sock. Walked through the streets. Streets were relatively quiet, just a few stragglers here and there walking by, greeting him nicely, whether they knew him or not. And Brent soon found himself in front of the house of the person whose life he was supposed to end. Checked for dogs, no dogs. Looked up and down the street, no one around, few lights on here and there. The discharge of the weapon would make a lot of noise, so we'd have to make a quick getaway. Opened the gate was quite noisy, lights went on in the house. Got to the door, knocked on the door. The door opened, and his target stood in front of him. It was someone he knew from his school days. And the person was quite concerned, and he asked him what he was doing there and could he help him with anything. What happened? What was going on? Brent reached for the weapon, but decided against it. He got up. He told the guy the story of what he was there to do and told him to leave with his family. That same night, the man packed up and left the area. Brent went back to his boss, told his boss what had happened, and that they would never have to be concerned about this coming back to them and harming them, the gang, or the boss himself, ever again. Fortunately, the boss was quite understanding. As he saw Brent as a son, he treated Brent as a son and also as one of the first initiates into the gang. They were quite close. So we accepted it. But he kept the secret between the two of them and didn't share it with any of the other members. Brent had two choices. He could have done what his boss instructed him to do, or he could have chosen life, which is what he did. Quote of the day: creativity is painting the canvas with colors, doing what you do with what you have, knowing the limits and moving beyond. Attributed to Anand Patwa. Gratitude for tuning into this week's edition of The Spirit of Do, with me, your host and guide, David John Wayne Bailey on Radio East River. I look forward to spending some quality time with you again this coming Friday at 10 a.m. South African Standard Time. Oh, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. So feel free to reach out to me via email, david@davidjohnwaynebailey.com, or Twitter and Instagram at davbay83. Till then, keep doing what you're passionate about. Love and inner peace.